Rite music channel. I'm your host, Rachel Tissot. The last video I talked about the Novus Ordo Mass and what it is that we're doing wrong with it that's driving Catholics, faithful Catholics, out of it into the Latin Rite, into even converts, into Eastern Orthodoxy versus the Novus Ordo. What is it that we're doing wrong with it? I mean, if we're going to follow in Pope Francis's vision for keeping, with staying within the English Rite, then we really need to ask ourselves that question, because people are just not attracted to it anymore. And I posed this question specifically to liturgical musicians because in my last video I made 3 points of observation of what we are doing wrong possibly. And point number 2 was that so much of the English Rite really revolves around the music versus the Latin tradition. It really doesn't, it adds to it, but it's not as important as it is in the English Rite. Music seems to take more of a precedence in commanding people to pay attention to the different like categories, so to speak, of the English Rite. It's canon. Point number 2 is what we're going to be talking about today, with specifically talking about our choices in music. That music takes such a precedence in the English Rite that we really need to be careful with those choices. And the document that I'm going to be talking about that really hones in on this point is a document that was issued by the Doctrine Committee of the United States Bishop. This document was actually put out early last year, and it says what's really interesting. It says that this document was supposedly, it says this document has been distributed to bishops who were encouraged by the United States Conference of Bishops to share it with diocesan worship offices, pastors, and parish musicians. They were encouraged. And the whole document is all about choosing correct hymns for the Mass. And that's what's really interesting. It's a great document. So this is from the National Catholic Register that I pulled this article up. Terrific document that ought to have been shared, mandated to be shared, rather than encouraged, because it brings up some great points about hymnody in the Novus Ordo. They say Christian tradition, both Eastern and Western, has from antiquity been acutely aware that hymns and other songs are among the most significant forces in shaping or misshaping the religious and theological sensibility of the faithful. That's what they said. So to the point that I made of my observation in my last video, that music in the English Rite seems to take a greater precedence in the whole overall ritual than in the Latin Rite. And here it is, reinforced by the Doctrine Committee of the United States Catholic Bishops. So they're saying, yeah, music is really important in the English Rite, so we need to get this right. And they go on to say that songs like All Are Welcome are totally heretical and cannot be sung anymore. We cannot do these songs. And they point out some other hymns that go along those lines that do not support Catholic tradition because the lyrics are heretical. And it's a great document, and I encourage you to read this article. I'm going to put it in the footnotes here under my video. The other part of this is that, okay, it's a great document. It tells us, hearkening back to Vatican II's purpose of, hymnody in the ritual, that, all the songs, quote, ought to glorify God. That goes back to what Vatican II said about music at Mass. But here's the second part of this whole dilemma, is that where it does say what hymns you shouldn't use, it also adds to, on the contrary, what hymns you should use in their place. And one of the hymns it suggests is Ave Verum Corpus, which is a beautiful Eucharistic hymn that's traditionally sung on Corpus Christi. But this is not a chant that you can find in any hymnal in your Catholic church. It's not in there. Be Thou My Vision in my own hymnals is not even in my books. Take My Life and Let It Be, like beautiful old hymns like that that are so poignant and speak so much to the Catholic heart of worship are not even in most standard Catholic hymnals. So the real question is, okay, it's all fine and dandy to say, don't use this hymn, use this instead, or these hymns ought to glorify God by their nature. But when we have resources that don't give us the opportunity to do that because they are composed of hymns that these publications, WLP, OCP, are putting out there that are heretical. What are we left to work with? But supplements. Here's your handout, which is very tacky. I use handouts because I have to supplement my hymnal, and it's extreme. It feels extremely irreverent. It doesn't feel right at all, but I do it. But I know a lot of people, they don't want to do that. They don't have the time or day, and we shouldn't have to. If we have a hymnal, if we have a book in our pews, it ought to be a book that we don't have to go through and question the lyrics. Does the hymn in here, actually support our Catholic faith? It shouldn't even be in there in the first place, right? I mean, that's the real logic. Why are these hymns even in our hymnals? So if we're going to put these hymnals in our Catholic churches, shouldn't the hymnals themselves be safe already? Again, it just feels like us liturgical musicians are always left to our own resources and in our own opinions of what hymns we should use and why, because we don't have great hymnals to work with, I think, overall. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to hear back from you. Do you think we need a hymnal overthrow? That's what I want to know. What do you think? And I'll see you next time. God bless. Hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving.